And we will make this recording available in a day or two, along with the slides that Mary will be showing in a few minutes, and any resources that are noted during the program. So you don't need to take notes. You can if you want, but you will receive a recording of the program today. In case you didn't know, this week is Employ Older Workers Week. This is a week long recognition or encouragement by the Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Labor, each September. And we're going to turn that idea around because rather than employing older workers, we're going to be talking about how you can employ yourself, or how older adults can employ themselves as solopreneurs. So we're going to dub this not Employ Older Worker Week. We're going to dub it Employ Yourself as a Solopreneur Week. To give us a little bit of background on solopreneurship, Mary Cronin, who is a business professor at Boston College and is specializing these days in entrepreneurship, is going to give us an overview, and then we'll turn to our panel. Mary? You're on mute, Mary.
Happily, I haven't said anything important yet, just how happy I am to be here. Thank you, Doug. And also just checking that you can see this shared screen, which I'm going to be using to show my slides. I'm just trying to get rid of all of the screen paraphernalia here and get back to the slides and start showing them. So again, I am delighted to be here. I am, as Doug said, a professor of business and entrepreneurship at Boston College, where I have taught for a long time in the School of Management, and have become extremely interested in Encore, that is over 50 entrepreneurs, and work with Doug in the Encore Network as the co-chair of the Entrepreneurship Affinity Group, as well as teaching and directing a program for entrepreneurship at BC, and writing and researching older entrepreneurs with the book, Starting Up Smarter, Why Founders Over 50 Build Better Companies. And I'm here to just very quickly share some good news, some information, and some of the questions and challenges that many of you may have brought to this meeting, and that we are here to talk about and collectively address. So what is solopreneurship? Well, it is a way of redefining entrepreneurship, and as Doug said, indeed, the opportunities for work over 50. And let's ask ourselves, and you have the answer to this question. If you are motivated to be an entrepreneur, we want to hear from you. Why are you motivated to be an entrepreneur? But I'll share some research about what is motivating millions of individuals over 50 to become Encore solopreneurs. And then I'd like to say, stay tuned, because the last slide is the secret for success and happiness in becoming a solopreneur. It's not quite that, but it is, I think, a start. So, okay, redefining what it means to be an entrepreneur. That's what we're doing in what is happening today. Basically, there's a legal definition or a corporate definition. If you're the single owner of a small business and you don't have employees, you are legally a sole proprietor, or colloquially a solopreneur. And the reality is it's bigger than that. It's more than that. It involves more people. And in fact, it's the new face of entrepreneurship. It's by far the fastest growing form of entrepreneurship in the United States today is being a solo owner. So if you think you're alone, if you wonder if it would be a lonely path for you to start a business as a solopreneur, don't worry about that, because you're going to be in the majority of small business owners today. As you see here, 80% of the 33 million incorporated businesses in the US today are owned by solopreneurs. And the image of entrepreneurs as, Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or your favorite or least favorite billionaire business founder is really a tiny, tiny fraction of the businesses in the US today. So they get all the news, but they don't make our economy run nearly as much as the 1.3 trillion, yes, trillion dollars that solopreneurs contribute to the US economy every year. Now, they don't make that much money, mind you. It's the businesses they run and the work that they do that makes that number so large. And honestly, the income that solopreneurs make is a very wide range. In $20,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 a year if you're part-time, maybe freelance solopreneur, or an increasingly large category of single owner businesses that do bring in over $1 million a year in revenue. And in fact, that's a very fast growing part of the solopreneur economy. So if you're a solopreneur, you're part of a huge movement. You are, in fact, part of or thinking about becoming part of the biggest aspect of entrepreneurship in the country today. So, what is motivating those of us who are over 50 to think about or become solopreneurs? Well, really, you know the answer to that question for yourself. And it's true, although it sounds like a cliche, there are millions of different answers to that question. And there is no one answer that motivates you or anyone else in isolation from all the other factors going on in your life. But here's a snapshot from research. It's a combination of social, personal, and economic factors. In business research, it's called necessity entrepreneurship versus opportunity entrepreneurship. And most of us are looking at some of both. So necessity is something that you are probably aware of. I certainly am. Many of us in this group are doing our best to point out that over 50, it's a very tough world to find employment if you are laid off or you want to change careers. There's a lot of discrimination, even if you are holding on to a job that you might face in the workplace. And once you leave, it can be difficult to find a traditional job. But you are not ready to retire. You need extra income. You have more to give. You want to do something that keeps you connected and that uses your expertise, and you want to make money doing it. Well, that's that combination then of necessity and opportunity. And I did an informal poll of our speakers today about what they love about being a solopreneur and what motivated them. And so this is, under opportunity, a summary of that. And it was like super inspiring and so much in common. Everyone said they want to be independent, work for themselves, and do something that they love doing. Tracy, I remember this so well, also said, I love what I'm doing, but it's also work. And you will hear a variety from our speakers of how they balance their life and their work. and how they are using their expertise and setting their own goals and schedule. And this is super motivating, and this is the life of a solopreneur today. So you get to decide. And also improve your financial security and your financial flexibility to have that income that makes you feel you don't have to worry about where your next expenditure is coming from. And purpose is so important to everyone over 50 who becomes a solopreneur, to make some kind of difference in the world. So think about what motivates you. And if it's not on this list, I hope you will share it with us as we go into the resources. And my theme on this slide is sharing, sharing, and more sharing. Because if you think you don't know the latest in AI productivity tools for running a business, nobody knows. That changes every day. There's a new tool. The one that I added here, Opus Clip in the middle in black, I found that out from Mary Schrader when I was talking to her a few weeks ago about being a solopreneur. I'd never heard of it. I'm personally a fan of Otter AI. Many of you know about Canva, but I'm inviting you here to put into the chat your favorites and your allegiances and your
all of this kind of information is included in that version.
And all of that can be shared. And so rather than pretending to be the one who knows it all here, I'm here to say nobody knows it all because it's changing so quickly. So many of our featured speakers today and many of you have worked with business coaches, with mentors, with consultants, have been part of accelerators, taken workshops and classes. And I ask you to add them to the chat as you think of them here. And this chat information will be shared. And the group that Doug and I co-chair, which we also invite you to join as a peer community, is the Encore Network Entrepreneurship Affinity Group. And we are working on building a resource guide to make some of these recommendations more widely available. So again, the peer groups I mentioned here are not to imply that, these are the only peer groups, but to just, in the fast learning, you know about the Encore Network. Hopefully you're here. Founders Over 55 is the group I've been working with and helped to found. And I talked to a member of the Encore Network just yesterday about her community, Second Act Fit Pros. And I know that one of our speakers, Tracy Townsend, is recommended because of Erin's being part of that. So, hey, Erin, I didn't tell you I was going to do this shout out, but many other people have communities, local groups that they're in, and I hope you'll recommend them. So, final word here. We are solopreneurship. We are the future. If you are wondering if you have what it takes, if you're ready to go, if you could do more with your business, well, we're all thinking that. You're not alone. You're not alone as a solopreneur. You come with a community, a group of supporters, partners, peers, and I'm here to say we can support and empower each other because we all are looking to make our lives better, the lives of the people we love and work with better, and we have the opportunity to make the world a better place and have a better life as solopreneurs. So thank you. On to you, Janine.
Hooray. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to give a disclaimer before I get started. Doug Dixon and Mary Cronin are at the ready to take over. I am having an unstable internet day, and right now I'm hotspotting on my phone. So we'll see how this all goes. But welcome. I am so glad that so many people are here. My name is Janine Vanderberg. after 3.5 decades of running a company that I founded that had employees and real estate and tons of clients and all the things, turned to solopreneurship in 2018 when I was the co-founder of a social enterprise called Changing the Narrative, an anti-ageism initiative, and then segued and have taken my work spreading the anti-ageism message and age inclusion message to my company Encore Roadmap. So have the experience, longtime experience with entrepreneurship, but also then kind of plunging into solopreneurship. So I was thrilled when the Encore Network decided not only to do this program, but to invite such an amazing panel of solopreneurs. And I'm hoping what everybody leaves here with is not only some concrete tactical advice, but also some inspiration, like we can do this and now is our time. And that really is the message that I like to get out there in the world. So what I'm going to do first is name our panelists. And if I could ask you each, as I name you, to, in less than 1 minute, give your introduction, your name, your company, and what it does in 1 minute or less, and then we'll dive deeper. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with Mary Schrader, because Mary, we haven't met before, and I was just intrigued with your story. So tell us if you would unmute yourself, tell us who you are.
Thank you, Janine. My name is Mary Schrader, and I'm the creator of Mary's Nest. It's a website with a corresponding YouTube channel that has over 1 million subscribers, where I teach traditional cooking skills, how to make bone broth, ferments, cultured dairy, sourdough, these subjects that I'm very passionate about. And I'm also the author of the Modern Pioneer Cookbook, published by Penguin Random House last year. And I've got my second cookbook with Penguin Random House coming out next year.
And Mary, I can't wait to sign up for both. And I know that my husband will be thrilled if I learn to cook in retirement. That has escaped me so far. Let's go next to Jim McDonough. And let me know if I pronounce that right, Jim. Tell us who you are, what your company does.
Well, a lot of people get it wrong, so I appreciate getting it right. Hi, everybody here, or good morning and afternoon, depending on where you all are. It's nice to see a lot of folks from a lot of places. I've been asked to be brief, so I'll try that, which is not necessarily in my wheelhouse. But I'm Jim McDonough. I own and operate Simplified Technologies in operating in Northeast Ohio. The real short version is I make stuff work.
I love that. And Jim, can I tell you, I wish you were here right now in Paonia, Colorado.
Well,
to make
I get calls and texts on exactly what you're doing a lot, okay. But just so that makes a little bit more sense, I design, install, and program electronic systems that make technologies work for home and business owners.
Terrific, thank you. Tracy, let's go to you next. Tell us about you and Fitness with Tracy.
Sure, thank you. So my name is Tracy Townsend, and my business is Fitness with Tracy, and I provide online strength and fitness coaching to women over 50 because you're never too old or too out of shape or too busy to get strong. And you can find me on Instagram most often, and I just recently started my public YouTube channel as well.
Woohoo! I love that, and I'm hoping that you're going to tell us a little bit more about online businesses as well as Mary, because I know a lot of people are interested in that. And I love it personally because it changes the narrative that older people in tech don't get along. And that's an important narrative for all of us to change. Let us go to Ken Galvin in Phoenix Sign Studio. Tell us about you, Ken.
Thanks, Janine. My name is Ken Galvin. After a 35-year career in commercial real estate brokerage, my wife and I moved from the Chicago area to the Phoenix area at the beginning of the year, and I started Phoenix Sign Studio, which is a full-service sign company providing any manner of signs to commercial clients of any size.
I love it. And can I say how I love how you have a sign in back of you? So talk about great promotion and advertising. And then let's go to my friend Vivica von Rosen, Beyond the Dream Board. Tell us about you, 1 minute or less, my friend.
It's like she knows me or something. Yeah, so for 18 going on 19 years, I was the LinkedIn expert. I wrote lots of books about LinkedIn and spoke all over the world. And then about a year ago, decided I can't do another LinkedIn profile. It will kill me. Also, I wanted to get out of the company I was working at. So I did the pivot myself and started my company Beyond the Dream Board, which is really about helping women like me, corporate women, influencers who feel stuck in what they're currently doing and they need to extricate themselves. Is that some of you? They need to extricate themselves and really start crafting the business, the legacy that they were put on this earth to create. And so it's been a lot of fun doing that.
Okay, so Vivica, you actually lead us into our next question. So I'm going to go now in reverse order, but I'm going to ask everybody. Mary at the outset kind of gave motivations for Encore solopreneurs. Just let us know where you fit within. What motivated you to start solopreneurship at this life stage? But what I really want to know, and so I'm giving you a little bit more time, 3 minutes each, how does what you're doing currently draw upon strengths and experience that you've had over a lifetime, you've built up over a lifetime, or maybe does it represent a new passion? So each of you, let's go in reverse order. Vivica, you started what was motivating you. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, pretty much all of the above was motivating me, really. I was just in a situation where we had grown a company. I had partners. We had grown a company, multi-million-dollar company. And because we had transitioned into software from a training company and a digital sales transformation company, which was my area of expertise for bunches of years, and into software, first of all, I felt like there's no place for me here anymore. Secondly, it was a very male-oriented industry, software as a service, and a very male-oriented company. We had lost all of our female leadership, and I just wasn't being heard. Thirdly, I already knew intuitively that this was not where I was supposed to be, but kind of was resisting it because the money was good. I don't know if anyone else has been there. And the golden handshake, or golden handshake, the whole golden handcuffs, like, not many of us have pensions anymore, but the just walking away from 6 figures was kind of a hard thing to do. But what really finally did it for me was lying in a hospital bed and working on grants for a company I didn't love, going, what the hell am I doing? And so for me, I've always, sorry if this, I slid out of the womb with a microphone in my hand. Like, I've never been afraid of the microphone, as you can probably tell. I love writing. I love writing books. I have lots of books. But the topic wasn't exciting to me anymore. I remember like speaking on stage and feeling so disassociated from what I was talking about because I could care less about it, quite frankly. And so for me, to actually answer your question, there's a couple things like that, those gifts that I was born with, the speaking, the writing, the empathy, the coaching, I just needed to do it in a way that was actually feeding me and that I thought was maybe good for the world as opposed to just good for a few big companies. And then as I was going through this transition, it took about a year for me to exit myself out of my company as much as I've been able to, which isn't totally yet. As I was moving through that, I realized, oh, I really want to be working with women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. I really want to be working with corporate women, especially those of us who were kind of high up or influencers, because extricating ourselves is really hard. to do. And I really want to focus on our words. So speakers, writers, or people who have a message for the world, podcasts, YouTube, because my message, my single message to the world is women's words change the world. And so I realized it wasn't even about me anymore. And I think that's what a lot of us in our 50s, 60s, and 70s is like, oh, I'm not the center of the universe. Well, I am, but I'm not. And maybe I'm actually here to help Sherpa other people to their goals, especially women in their 50s and 60s and 70s. Not that guys aren't great too, but there's just other people for you.
Okay. I'm glad you added that last part, that guys aren't great, because I think we have two great guys on this panel.
We do, at least two.
And I know we have guys in the audience, and I hear from guys all the time who are frustrated, very often with workplace age discrimination, who are like, okay, you know, what can I do next? So I'm going to segue, Ken, to you. And I'm really curious beyond the broad question, because I'm thinking commercial real estate signs. I see some connection because I see signs in front of commercial real estate, but I'm just like, how did you go from here to here? Tell us about that, Ken.
Well, it's funny that you lead in with a discussion on ageism, because I definitely was facing some of that. So after a few years ago, after roughly 30 years in the real estate industry, my wife and I started talking about relocating to Arizona to help deal with some health discomfort issues and put her in a better climate. As part of that process, I understood a couple of things. First of all, I was not in a field that was portable. I couldn't pick up my my list of clients and take them with me to a new market. That just isn't possible in that industry. So I was really looking at a situation where I knew I had to start over and reinvent myself. At the same time, the business that I was in was not the one that I had once started in and loved, and I really wasn't that enamored with it anymore. So I started out looking for corporate real estate positions, looking for corporate positions of other types as well, and quickly realized that nobody wanted to hire somebody in their mid-50s. Didn't matter whether I was underqualified, overqualified, perfectly qualified for a position. I just wasn't getting anywhere with that. But at the same time, I realized that that wasn't what I really wanted. I wanted the independence that comes with entrepreneurship. So eventually I was introduced to a franchise coach and started working through that process, evaluating a series of different opportunities. And one of those was a sign business. And of all the opportunities I was looking at, that was the one that really spoke to me. And so I eventually ended up moving forward with that, with the added complication that I wasn't just starting a new business, but I was also moving in the middle of starting that new business, and starting that business in a city that I didn't know, hadn't spent much time in, and was a completely new experience for me.
So Ken, I'm going to ask you to kind of come back when we get later in the conversation about how you maybe overcame some of what I'm sure a lot of people listening are thinking of, some of the inherent challenges of new business, new location, and all of that, because now I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I figure that out.
Can I Also, just thank you for acknowledging that you experience workplace age discrimination. I mean, basically what I do every day is I talk to people about ageism in the workplace and how it deprives workplaces or communities in the economy of vital talent. And one of the challenges I have is very often people aren't willing to admit that they faced it, right? Because there's kind of a stigma attached. So I just want to shout you out for doing that. Thank you so much, because I know other people on this call have experienced something similar. Tracy, let's go to you, because when we talked before, I was like, what an interesting segue. And I want to know how you put together, and I won't disclose what you did before with what you're doing now.
All right, sure. Thank you. So I'm a retired public school educator. I was a teacher, assistant principal, and principal for a total of 33 years. So teaching is like what we say in my blood. That's what I do. But I've been interested in strength and fitness for a while because I enjoy working out myself. But then as I looked around, I didn't really see a lot of women my age who also enjoyed like being strong and being fit and doing a lot of things. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to share all about fitness and the benefits of fitness with others? So I also felt like it was a bit of combining two things, right? One thing, something I knew and something I loved. So fitness and teaching, they kind of go together because in many ways, coaching is similar to teaching. You do a lot of listening, you do a lot of instructing, and you do a lot of encouragement. Same thing you did as a teacher with your students or a principal with your teachers, you do with your clients that you coach. And so since I retired relatively early, I was about 55 when I retired. So I thought it was the perfect time for me to pursue this career and just jump right in. And that's what I did, basically, in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. And can I just, I'm going to ask a brief follow-up question. Tell us about the online thing that you do.
So I actually my business is an online business. So I provide coaching in an online format. And a lot of people are curious about that because they're like, well, don't you have to be with me in order to coach me and show me how to do certain exercises? And the great thing about being online, and the great thing about the virtual aspect is, in a way, I kind of am right there with you because we have things like this Zoom, we have apps like WhatsApp that I communicate with my clients, we video chat back and forth. The Google platform is awesome because you can share spreadsheets. So really, I use technology in order to be right there with my clients.
Tracy, I am signing up. Okay, let's go to Jim McDonough. Jim, tell us how you ended up founding Simplified Technologies.
Okay.
What motivated you, and how did it draw on what you did before?
Well, okay. I took, relative to some of the others, I took a little bit of a shortcut. And I really very much admired Ken, Tracy, and others who have contemplated or are contemplating or have gone into something completely different from what was their career path for, whatever, 30 plus years. My path was I progressed from telling myself that I really didn't want to start a business. I didn't want the complications and the stresses and the investments and the aggravation and all that, to deciding to do what I had been doing for quite a few years. I worked for one company for 20 years, actually, which was probably too long. But I had a lot of independence. I had a lot of autonomy in that business. And like a lot of us, I thought probably, well, I could just coast into whatever the later part of my careers would be. But there was a kind of an industry shakeout around and after the 08-09 recession. And a lot of the organizations that I worked with and worked for changed. The company I worked at long period for actually joined but not officially merged with another company, which months later merged with a third company, and it was kind of a clash of three different cultures and so forth. Some of us had, better experience in an aspect, and one of the companies had retail space that we didn't have, and but we had maybe installation shops that they didn't have. And overall, that all kind of went away, and all three companies are not actually active right now. But I am. So I recognize that it's possible to do this work solo, and you might be surprised at that. I mean, I sell big stuff and hang TVs and run wire and do a lot of pretty much anything that's low voltage electronics. We pretty much do, and that can involve networking, which everything lands on, and audio video stuff, and control. And I named the company Simplify because essentially, like I said before, we make things work that sometimes people have some difficulty with. But my pure motivation really was the business structure I'd worked within just fallen away. And I still had people contacting me. I had an advantage as I had probably a 20-year installed base of clients. So that was a big help. And if I did nothing, if I just hung up my shingle and said, I'm not doing this anymore, people would still be calling me. When I was
It's a
in
lovely
that sort of
position to be in. Yeah.
when I was in that, what I sort of call professional limbo for a couple of years, before I started to do my own thing, which was a little over 7 years ago. I had a person call me I had done a small job for him 20 years earlier, and they said, well, can you help me with this or that? So the motivation was I actually thought one of the remaining partners from the old company would sort of formulate a new business, and when he didn't do that, I just weighed the fact that I can actually do this without a physical plant, without a showroom, without a retail store, without warehouse and inventory and so forth, because this is project based and it's very personal. I get into whatever the business needs or whatever the client in the residence needs, and I'll come back and sit where I am now and formulate something that will actually work for them. And the other thing, the other, not the motivation, but the other factor for me was I recognized that I really, really enjoy doing this. And with a whole lot of experience, I've gotten to be pretty good at it.
So Jim, I love that sort of combination of, in a way, the floor falling out from under, and at the same time recognizing the role that you could play. And I think that's something really helpful to some of the people listening here today, is sometimes when things don't work out the way you thought they would, it doesn't mean that the door is closed. So thank you for sharing that. I want to go ahead and conclude this part. Mary, with your story, what motivated you? And how did it draw on, or not, what you had done before?
Well, it's interesting because my education is that of an attorney. And so cooking, yes, is not really related at all to that. But
I use that as my excuse of why I haven't cooked.
And as I had shared with Mary on earlier chats, our son was diagnosed with very severe dyslexia. And both the public schools and other small private schools in the area, even the school that we have here in Austin, Texas, for children with dyslexia, said his dyslexia is too severe. You need to get a reading therapist, and then you need to homeschool. Well, I was completely unprepared for that. But I said, all right. And I was an older mom. I was in my 40s when my son was born. So I said, okay, I got the reading therapist. We started homeschooling. He was, in first grade. So I figured, okay, I can handle those subjects. But I quickly realized, having a very outgoing child, that I was going to need to form a homeschool group. So I did that, and we had our little co-ops and all of that. And what I found was that and had left the profession of law. And what I found was that most of the mothers were much younger than me. And they were all very interested in learning traditional cooking. So Saturday mornings, they would be in my home. The fathers would take the older children, the mothers would have the nursing babies, and I would teach traditional cooking skills. They wanted to know, really starting from how to roast a chicken, how to take the bones and make bone broth, how to make your own yogurt, how to make sourdough bread, all of these very traditional skills that my mother, who was born in the 1920s, had raised me knowing all of these things, and who now was delighted I had returned to what she called the gentle arts of domesticity. But in any event, I went on. I'm very passionate about keeping these skills alive. And even when I was practicing law, even as a single woman, I would often, be cooking like this and teaching people. So here I am teaching in my kitchen and expanding, and anybody who wanted to learn, and it was all free, just come to my kitchen, I'll teach you how to make these things. Well, when I turned 60, and at this point, my son is going off to college, and both he and my husband say, you're really passionate about keeping this alive. Why don't you make YouTube videos? And you can reach a much broader audience. So I knew what YouTube was, and I knew how to watch YouTube videos, but had no idea how to do them. But the good news is there's so many resources to help you, and it's very easy to do. And next thing you know, you're making a website, you're making YouTube videos, and it just starts to snowball. And it's just been wonderful to reach so many people and to be able to keep these traditional cooking skills alive.
I'd love that. And Mary, if I can ask you to put maybe in the chat the link to your YouTube videos, and Tracy, if I can ask you to do the same thing, so that, those of us who I really want to see the sourdough video, Mary. So
I've got lots of them.
okay. And I want to invite everybody in the audience right now to just sort of stop and pause and think for a moment, based on the stories that you've just heard about how people got into these Encore solopreneurships, what is something kind of in your background, this maybe a passion you've always had, or kind of that I'm going to call Jim's story, the floor story. What is something like that happened that might lead to solopreneurship for you? Meanwhile, we're going to do a quick round robin, asking the question, because so we've heard some of the great parts of solopreneurship, and I know from doing this, from going to having a company where I had people who did stuff, the first time I figured out, I have to schedule my own appointments, I almost had a meltdown because I was so used to saying, Stella, would you schedule, this whole block of, and all of a sudden I didn't have an assistant, I didn't have employees, I didn't have a training manager or any of those things. I had to do it myself. So I'm going to ask each person to briefly share a benefit of solopreneurship and a drawback, 1 minute or less. And Tracy, I am seeing you first on my screen, so let's start with you. Benefit and drawback.
I think the benefit is being retired already. I get to work as much as I want or not. And I think the drawback is as a solopreneur, there's just many different aspects that you may not have thought of before that you have to do.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Jim, how about you?
Whoops, gotta hit the button. Yeah, well, okay. A benefit certainly is doing good work and having really positive feedback from my clients. I've gotten a lot of that, and that goes directly to me, not the company. So I'm the company. So that's very satisfying, actually. Delivering projects that I know strike a balance of performance, reliability, and value, they're going to use for years. That's good. It's a good feeling. And completing something that's challenging upfront, maybe, and works that's part of the stuff I really love about it.
Better drawback.
A drawback is I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV, but I'm kind of the doctor for the network, for the video, for the audio system, for whatever is connected to all my stuff. And frequently, the last 3 holiday weekends, I try to be unplugged, and there's a text that said, I'm having trouble with X. So that can be a little bit disruptive, but I always figure it out and deliver some kind of a solution for my clients.
Of course, because you're the fix-it guy. Vivica, how about you?
Yeah, the positive and the negative, your success or failure is up to you. So you have to take full responsibility because you can't be like, oh, it wasn't my swim lane. It's not my fault that failed. So yeah, your success and your failure is 100% on you. Another huge benefit is you get, at least for some of us, we get to do what we were put on this earth to do finally, right? And fully and with complete integration. And I don't know that this is such a negative, but there's a huge liminal zone, especially when we're making the transition into solopreneurship. We're like, I don't know, like, what are my next steps? I don't have any foundations, kind of what you alluded to earlier. Like, I don't have a team to support me. I don't have a schedule, booked out to here. Like, what do I do? But that's also a win, because that is like the ultimate creative space. There's nothing holding you back. So it's scary, but it's also really cool.
Okay. Mary, how about you?
Oh, the benefit, I think one of the best benefits is you're the boss. You're your own boss. You're making the decisions about what you want to do and how much you want to do and where you want to take whatever your business is. The drawback is, and I think this probably applies to all of us, we're very highly motivated people, very determined, and you can find yourself working 24/7. And so sometimes you need to, although you're very creative, you have so many ideas and so much you want to do, you have to say, okay, let me just take a step back. I need to sleep.
Mary, I need to write that on a post-it because that is my world too often, too many ideas, and I need to sleep. Ken, wrap it up for us. Benefit and drawbacks of solopreneurship.
I wish I'd known what Vivica was going to say, because I'm basically going to repeat it. For
That's
me,
okay.
the benefit, for me,
Reinforcement
the biggest,
is good.
for me, the biggest benefit is I am fully responsible for my successes. And that's incredibly rewarding. The biggest drawback is I am fully responsible for my successes, and that's terrifying.
Yeah, it is. It is. So this is a great segue. I'm glad you went last, Ken, too. So I know, so for me, I was so used to running a company that when I thought I'm going to do something else, but I'm going to do it by myself, I kind of knew all the steps. I wasn't quite as tuned into, oh, I'm going to have to do everything as I should have been. I could have used a panel discussion like this before I plunged from company to solopreneurship. But I want to ask each of you, because I know this is the question I get most often from people who, the people who either on LinkedIn or ask you for coffee to quote, pick your brain, is how do I start? So I'm curious, especially for people who haven't previously run companies, what did you find helpful in planning or starting your venture? Like, how did you approach it? And this is kind of a two-sided question. And then how did you overcome the doubts that I think so many of us have when we're starting anything new, whether it's a company or, starting a new volunteer gig or anything? For me, it was a move across the state. So what was helpful in planning, and how did you overcome doubts? And I'm looking at the order on my screen, and Mary, you just popped up next to me. So you go first.
Oh my goodness. I can really speak to the doubt part of your question. I had terrible imposter syndrome when I started all of this, because I'm not a trained chef. I'm a home cook. I was taught by my mom. My mom was taught by her mother. We're just a line of home cooks. And, I don't like to always just say that term, just a home cook. I've always been an admirer of Nigella Lawson, because she will say, I'm not a trained chef, I'm a home cook, and yet she's had a lot of success. And I think that was my biggest challenge when I first started my website and my YouTube channel, because I was like, wow, there are all these young, fantastic food bloggers, amazing pictures. They're so talented. They know so much. Who am I? You know, I'm in my 60s. I don't take great photographs. You know, I have this incredibly long form content. Who's going to watch this, you know, these step-by-step videos? Especially people are, you know, doing so fast in their hands. And I'm like, okay, hello, my name is Mary. I'm ready to begin. And so I had a lot of doubt there. And then you do that, and you start your business. In my case, you know, doing the videos, you're really putting yourself out there. And then you're getting all these negative comments, you know, where people are really mean. And so you've already got the imposter syndrome. Now you're getting mean comments and you're like, oh my gosh, what the heck am I doing? You're just so exposing yourself. But then I persevered, and I just said, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to put a video out every week. I'm passionate about this subject. I'm going to teach these people. And then it starts to snowball, and you start to get a little more exposure. You start to get more comments, more people saying, oh, I'm so glad I found you. I'm so glad you're here. This is what I need, step by step by step. And that really was my motivation to continue, because people were coming to me and saying, wow, I have been trying to find somebody on YouTube who could teach me how to do this, and I just couldn't find anybody, but I found you and I connect with you. And that's what I always tell people. Never think that you can't be successful on YouTube if you're over 50, because you have something to share that you're very knowledgeable about, and there are people looking for you. And they're looking on YouTube and they're trying to find someone to connect with, and they haven't found that person yet, but then they find you, and then it just snowballs.
So thank you for sharing that story of overcoming doubt. And shortly after I started changing the narrative, I saw a comment, because I'm fighting ageism, right? And I saw a comment in a Boston Globe article that was featuring me, calling me a woke lunatic. And that was where I was like, okay, what do I do now? And that kind of thing. So I think your advice to keep going is really, really important. Jim, how about you? What was helpful to you in planning and starting? And did you have to overcome doubts as you were kind of doing this segue and pivot?
Well, maybe fewer doubts than some, like I said, that have done something completely different. But first of all, just when you're going to do it, when you're contemplating doing it, support from family and friends and other people, and people that maybe you work with or in the industry or the new industry, would help. And particularly if you're heading into a period of unpredictable income, loss of benefits, that kind of thing. That can be scary for people. I've had unpredictable income for pretty much forever, from you know, selling stuff and being on small salaries with bonuses and commissions and that kind of thing. So that was essentially an advantage for me. But and like I said, I didn't start a completely new enterprise, but the industry actually has a lot more support, I think, now for the little guy, the small business, than it would have 10 or 15 years ago, had I done something like that before. And there are a lot of resources in the industry that really support tech support for. I specifically specify products that I know are going to be supported by the manufacturer and support me when I'm doing the work. And I had a big advantage for me is I had really good relationships with manufacturers and distributors and so forth that supply the stuff that we have to work with. So that was a vastly bigger advantage than a lot of people starting something different.
Okay, great. Thank you. Ken, you are next, and I keep writing down my list, and then somebody else comes up next to me in the Zoom screen. Yeah, Ken, because you were doing, and this is really where I want you to touch on what you started talking about in the first question of not only are you starting something brand new, but it's kind of in a new city, you're dealing it, partners, health challenges. Talk to us about that. How did you do this? What kind of support did you have?
Uh, I'm glad you asked me that question in that way, because I think to some extent the whole concept of solopreneurship is a little bit of a myth. I have no employees, but I am not working solely on my own. I have a whole team behind me of various contracted service providers and advisors. And without them, I couldn't do what I do. I rely heavily on a whole network, including a peer group that I'm part of. So I think it's important to know that there are so many resources out there. You just have to look for them and be willing to listen to them. The other thing that I'll tell you is that I am somebody who, one of the things I recognize about myself is that I do much better when I'm out of my comfort zone. So to a certain extent, as crazy as it sounds, I don't know that I could be doing what I'm doing if I had stayed in Chicago and just started a business. The fact that I was put on the ground in a strange place, I look at as a positive, because I had no choice other than to get out and network like crazy, and learn my area and learn the competitive environment and learn a new industry. So in my mind, it really wasn't a choice. It was a necessity.
Well, and I mean, there is that well-known thing that if you really want to do something, you've got to cut that cord, right? And just
Absolutely.
and that's what allows you to move forward. How did you? Because I'm thinking, having also have moved to a new community, although not as distant from Chicago to Phoenix, it's basically still in Colorado, but from literally living in Denver City to, well, you can see kind of where I live now, where all I occasionally see are deer and bobcats. So totally different environment. How did you even approach, do I have the time for this question? Yes, I do. How did you approach networking and getting out there?
I was encouraged to join a networking group. So there's a whole myriad of networking opportunities in Scottsdale. I found a couple that I thought would be right for me. Turns out they weren't. Kept looking, eventually found a group through my local Chamber of Commerce. That's a really good, tight-knit group and has been wonderful for my business.
Okay. All right. Because I know that often that's something that people worry about. We know that peer support can be really important, but it's kind of, how do you find the right peer support? And it sounds like there was an element of trial and error for you.
There's definitely an element of trial and error. Not every group is the right group of people with the right mindset for what you need. And also, in addition to my local networking, I'm also part of a peer group of other sign company owners that bought into the same opportunity that I did. And that's been incredibly helpful too. And I talk with them every single day.
So you can learn from each other. Yeah.
We learn from each other. We help. We're constantly asking questions. How do I do this? What material would you use to make this? Hey, I ran into this problem. Has anybody seen this before? That kind of thing.
Okay. Good to know. Okay, good advice, people. Listen to this. So speaking of groups, Vivica, you and I actually met in the same group, but what
Yeah.
other, tell us what kind of support that you had in kind of planning this Encore stage.
Yeah, and you know, it was our peer group. And I also want to answer Barbara's question, which is like, how do you feel these groups? How do you find these groups and how do you find these people? Ask other people who are doing what you're doing or doing something similar to what you're doing, and you think they are successful at what they're doing, or they could be looking just really good online. But find people on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on wherever. It's amazing to me how you get those responses. When I started out in LinkedIn like almost 20 years ago, I reached out to people going, how did you start your business? What do you, and they responded and then became lifelong friends. So like, just ask who, who are you using for your taxes? What mastermind group do you belong to? What networking group do you go to that you like? What VA do you use? Okay, people are never going to share their VA because that's like gold. Virtual assistant. Who did you use to design your website? Who do you like? All of those things. All of the tools that I used to design my business were referrals by other people. And unfortunately, I have clients who were sold just through marketing or whatever, their service people, and they got ripped off and they wasted time and all of those things. So I am just, yeah, exactly, Doug, basic networking tactics. Hello. But I find that is one of the most important things you can do is just ask.
Okay, terrific. And Tracy, we're going to wrap it up with you. When you were starting out, especially, you've explained how, you were always a trainer, a teacher, but you're going from a principal, right? And I think when everybody hears principal, we get scared. So just, those are old days. How did you, the business side, how did you start that? It sounds like the actual content was natural to you, but how did you find the support you needed to build out the business side?
Yeah, I'd love to share. And first of all, I can relate 100% to Mary because just like she's talked about YouTube, same thing for Instagram. I mean, social media is an amazing tool and it can be pretty scary. And also just linking on to what everyone said about finding the right person or network or people. I think for me, that's what I want to highlight as a resource. And I think it's so important that I wrote this down. So if it sounds like I'm reading, I apologize, I am. But it's because I wanted to just talk about finding the right coach. Coaching really helped me. That was my primary resource to get started.
Yeah.
Because guess what? I first hired a life coach. And I knew I wanted to start my own online fitness coaching business, but I was reluctant and I might have even been a tad bit, afraid. But she helped me really reflect on me. And what it came down to for me was what made me happy, what made me light up, and what made me smile. So for me, that coaching was life changing. And then once I determined that I wanted to like do the thing, then I just started watching other people online, other businesses, and I started simply sharing and posting about my own fitness journey. But at some point, I realized that I needed help because I was a principal. I never had to run a business. I ran a school, but not a business. So that's when I got an online business coach who is amazing. She's still my coach to this day. She gave me the actions that I needed to take. She helped me narrow down my niche. She taught me about social media. She provided the support I needed. But one thing she taught me that I think is so important, especially as it relates to building a business on social media, is people have to trust you and relate to you before they'll buy from you. And that really makes a lot of sense and has helped me. Just be yourself and your people will come.
Tracy, I love that so much. It's that know, love, and trust factor. Okay, I have asked each of you to do a final bit of advice, but I want to slip in. I want to make sure we get to audience questions and answers first. So, and I'm seeing one right in front of me, but I'm going to ask Doug and Mary to be screening the chat for others. So everyone who's listening, if you have questions for any of our panelists, go ahead and put them in the chat. And I'm going to start with this question from Mark, and this is probably directed, I think probably to Tracy and Mary. And the question is, for online businesses, what's the revenue model? Subscription versus number of views, advertising dollars? Was there a goal of what percentage of each you were aiming for? Is one better than the other? So tell us your thoughts about online, basically an online business model. So Tracy, let's start with you, and then Mary, I'll go to you. And if any of you guys are doing, any of the rest of you are doing something else online, feel free to jump in. Tracy.
Let's see, I'll try to be brief. I think the first thing to let, in my experience, short experience, is that the number of followers does not determine the income or the you know, how much money you're making, right? There can be people with 1 million followers not bringing in that much money, and people with 1,000 followers that are bringing in, you know, like 6 figures. And that's because people need to know and trust you, right, in order to purchase from you. And then the other thing is just simply that for me, I learned how to determine what to expect when I launch my products using a business model that my coach told me about. You know, like if you use a wait list versus a lead magnet, I mean, all of those terms, you can expect like 10% of a turnover rate like that. So.
Okay, great advice. Mary, what would you add?
I would say that in my particular niche, I'm not selling something per se, other than the cookbooks that I'm publishing with Penguin Random House. So I'm always, you know, obviously promoting those through my videos and making recipes from the cookbooks to help sales and so on and so forth. But I always focused in social media on making sure that I had multiple streams of income. So I had the revenue from ads on YouTube. I had revenue from ads on my website. I had affiliate relationships that I had built, not just with Amazon, because that's sort of the common popular one, but I also had affiliate relationships with all of the companies whose products I used. And I would always say to them, okay, this is great. You have an affiliate relationship that you're going to give me, but you need to give a discount to my viewers. And then that encouraged sales, because the people were getting a discount to try a particular product or food that I would be using and recommending. And then I was getting the affiliate income. And all 3 of those together can be very lucrative and more than I ever made practicing law. So you can really build quite a business with a website and a YouTube channel, but always working at it, always thinking about the viewer. And it's exactly what Tracy said. You build a relationship. My first cookbook is already in its 4th printing, and my publisher didn't really anticipate that, but it was because I build trust with my viewers. And you have that, you know, they often say, yes, I have 1 million subscribers on YouTube, but I don't get 1 million views on every video. I'm very niche, you know, it's what do people want to learn. But you often hear in the video world, and Tracy's probably quite familiar with this as well, if you have your 1,000 core people and they share your videos, they talk about you, they buy your cookbook, they share your cookbook, so on and so forth, you can be very successful. You can have just that 1,000 and you're going to do great.
Okay. Mary and Doug, I'm going to ask you to queue up a question, because if I look at the chat, I get really distracted.
There's one that just came in, Janina, and that is how to organize, how to structure your business, an LLC, an S corp, proprietorship, no structure, no legal structure at all. Maybe each of our panelists can tell us how they structured their business from a legal perspective.
Yeah, and I'll just say, in both of my companies, both the larger company with 35 employees and owning real estate and my solopreneurship, I've done LLC. So, and the prior one had an S corporation because there are tax advantages to that in terms of drawdown and that kind of thing. But Tracy is saying she's LLC. Vivica,
There we go. Yeah. Yeah, LLC, and then a lot of DBAs doing business as. What I will say, Vangresso, the last company we had, because we were a big partnership and we had 44 employees, et cetera, we ended up going C Corp, thank goodness, because it was easier to extricate myself than from a partnership. But we were also a partnership for 5 years. So I don't think anyone needs a C Corp and S Corp yet. And I'm 100% not a lawyer, nor do I play one on TV.
Right.
So.
and I think it's just more, yeah, no, we are not giving legal advice here.
No.
And it looks like this question has come from James. James, my suggestion is first, it's figuring out what your business model is. How do you intend to make money? How does this all look? And then chatting with your lawyer about what best structure is. Mary, Ken, or Jim are, okay, Mary has an LLC. Jim or Ken, do you want to weigh in? Are you?
Yeah, I'm actually a C Corp.
You're a C Corp. Okay.
Due to some nuances with the way my company was financed.
Okay. And Jim, if you just want to go ahead and pop in the chat, I'm seeing a note from Barbara that Massachusetts has you pay $500 every year to be an LLC. So yeah, Colorado, we are very fortunate. It is relatively inexpensive to do business here and to renew your LLC every year. You pay $50 up front, and then it is, $10 a year to renew. And having said that, in my former company, I had employees in Chicago where it was extraordinarily expensive to do business. So Ken, getting out of Chicago, good business play if you're going to start your own company. And that varies widely from state to state. But to me, an LLC is well worth it. Okay. Other questions?
One thing that I think has gone through the discussion and come up a few times that I'd like to put on the table is, Jim, I know you said you were able to have your clients come to you, but for those of you who had to find new clients for a new business idea, what worked best? Tracy, I know generically 100% agree, building trust, and Mary too, people getting to know you, being consistent, but were there any very specific things that you found that worked for you in your early years? And Ken, you're still in your early years, and Viveka too. What are you doing to sign on clients that you have found to work?
Okay, Ken?
Ken first? Yeah.
For me, it's really starts with two approaches. One that I touched on before is networking, getting out and meeting as many people as I can, getting the message out there, and then turning those people in my networking group into, in essence, representatives for me as they're out now looking for opportunities that they can bring to me. The second, and that accounts for, at this point, probably a third of my business. The other method that is the other 2/3 is development of a high quality website and a big investment in SEO, which
Search
does not
engine
pay.
optimization. Yeah.
Search engine optimization, which does not pay immediate benefits, but builds over time. The other leg of that that most of my peers are doing, but I actually have not started doing any of yet, is paid advertising on Google. For whatever reason, I've been able to get quality organic leads through my website without going the paid ad route. So I've been very fortunate on that.
Great. Vivica, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of referrals. I mean, people already know, love, and trust you. Why wouldn't you use that? Of course, you have to have a very clear message and make it easy for them to refer you. When you're asking for a referral, don't just say, "Hey, do you know anybody who?" Say, "This is what I do. This is who I help. Who do you know who can?" Like it's a small distinction. Do you know anyone who do you know who can? But I could literally say, "Lynette, who do you know in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who's transitioning from corporate to entrepreneurship and needs guidance and help in that process?" Like, so keeping it very, very simple. There's nothing worse than a LinkedIn, "Can you introduce me to someone at LinkedIn?" Yeah, I probably could. Who are they and why should I help you and what do you do, right? The generic "can you help me with" is a crappy way to ask for a referral. So referrals, recommendations are the best thing you can do, and you have to make it as easy as possible for the person referring you. But that is how I've grown. I would say 80% of my business, and the rest has just been inbound through LinkedIn, through content that I share and people commenting on my content. And then I comment on their content and then we connect. And the next thing you know, I have a phone call with them.
Yeah.
So follow up on the people who comment on your content, whether it's LinkedIn or any of the socials.
And
Okay.
I would just add, because there was a question to Tracy about finding a coach. And I think what all of you have said, and you just recently, Viveka, is referrals, referrals, referrals. I mean, really, you probably all know people who are in business. I think so. And what works for them. And the right coach for you may not be the right coach for someone else. And you really need to, just what Ken said about, trying out different networks. Don't sign up with a coach without a trial.
Right.
And be very clear in your own mind what you want to get out of a coaching relationship, because that's going to make it work for you and help your coach deliver what you need and have the best value. So one size does not fit all, but there's no reason to think you need to do it alone. And Mary, thank you for adding in the chat. I'll just highlight it. Mary added, like, if you want to be a YouTube video maker and find a following, take a course. And Mary shared her course that she has, found very helpful at the beginning, and told me when we chatted earlier, she was invited back as a success story to share with other people in this community that has come out of taking the course. So often a workshop or something that is very specific can also introduce you to other people who can become supporters, referrers, and an important part of your friend and business network.
Absolutely. I'm seeing a question in the chat about, has anyone used SBA? And I will say, I know a number of people, especially if you don't have a business background, who have found intro SBA courses very valuable. For example, the question that came up earlier about choice of entity, they can explain the different kind of legal structures. They can explain things like basic, if you haven't done marketing for yourself before, the intro marketing courses, things like price, how do you price your services or product, that kind of thing. So there's that. If you look up SBA, there are basically usually a series of workshops in almost every community. And then the other thing is that there are teams of retired executives who can provide SCORE business mentorship, and they can be really helpful as well if you're able to pair up with someone who was doing something similar. So highly recommend looking up SBA and SCORE. And I think we're going to be turning it over maybe to Mary and Doug or we'll be sharing some resources in the follow-up. I want to ask each panelist to just give your final bit of advice, and then I'm going to turn it back to Mary and Doug. So Ken, you have the misfortune of being right next to me on my screen. So can I ask you to start your final bit of advice?
Don't let fear win. Going out on your own can be incredibly rewarding. And and don't succumb to the fears that keep you from doing that.
Yay. I love that so much. Vivica, how about you?
Oh, I love that. Do what you do best, let other people do the rest. And yes, I can't remember if it was Jim or Ken, but yeah, soloprenneurship is not about being alone. It's just about doing what you do best and then hiring the consultants, the contractors, the assistants, the whatever, so that you can shine in your area of expertise.
Okay, so Vivica, I am going to ask you a quick follow-up because I want to
Yeah.
hear from everybody. One of the things that I've heard from some of the people who come and ask me, they are afraid to spend money until they know that they are going to make money. How would you address that?
All I know is when I hired my first VA, I paid her more than I paid me. This is back in 2010. That was the month I got, and by the way, so that meant I slogged for 6 years on my own, bootstrapping and doing everything myself. And my company just limped along. In 2010, hired my first VA. And the fact that she just took so much mental and physical time, right? Or gave me back so much of my mental and physical time. And maybe it's a coincidence, but that's when Wiley came to me and said, would you write a book for us? That's when Social Media Marketing World said, hey, we want you to come speak at our event. That's when Content Marketing, Inbound, etc. That's when I started getting all the phone calls, like literally that month that I hired her, because my mental space. So the first month I paid her more than I paid myself. And then after that, it was a net profit. So it's not that you have to hire your whole team right now, right away, but do hire the people that are going to free up your time enough so that you can really focus on your own genius.
So the themes that I've heard are hire people, invest in coaching. If you don't know the business side of things, take some courses, invest in that. Jim, your final piece of advice, and then I'm going to go Tracy Mary. Okay, Jim.
Some of this will, excuse me, some of this might sound like an echo of some of the other things, but the main one I was just going to say for anybody who's contemplating this or anybody who's coaching people that might be contemplating this, tell them, don't be afraid. The act of doing it, pulling the trigger on a new business is, I was surprised at how relatively easy that was. But if you're going to consider something, and it's been mentioned, I think Vivica and others kind of alluded to this, is go find people who are doing it. People who like what they do, like talking about what they do. And I've always been, in school I was the shy kid and so forth, but I was contemplating other things, and the Encore, what are we going to do, what's next, and all that. I'm very familiar with all that. And some of those conversations maybe led me to, well, not pursue this, but keep doing what I was doing.
Terrific, Jim. Great advice. Just do it is what I'm hearing. Tracy, how about you? And then Mary.
I said two things. Follow your heart, and along the same lines as Vivica, I said, invest in yourself. It can be kind of scary, but invest in yourself. Coach or courses, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, great advice. Mary, you get the last word.
Well, I agree with what everyone said. All excellent advice. And I will throw out there, don't be afraid to consider making it a family affair. My husband is a huge help to me. Our son is a help to us. He's got a wonderful girlfriend that we're hoping is going to lead to marriage. She loves to cook. I look forward to maybe one day bringing her in. So never be afraid to talk to your family and see who might share your passion and be willing to want to come on board with you.
Mary, as someone who grew up in a family business and married someone who grew up in a family business, I really appreciate that. Thank you all so much. Can I have everyone you get to unmute yourself for a minute and just applaud for this just amazing, amazing group. I am so in awe of all of you. I am so grateful for all of you to share your inspiration, your knowledge, your insights. Thank you so much. Doug and Mary, you really get the last word. You go.
So Aaron, can you load up the slides and let me echo the appreciation that Janine and all of us just gave to our panel. And I want to also say thank you, special thank you to Janine for excellent facilitation and to Mary for setting the stage and helping to organize this event today. I just want to remind you that in a couple of days, you will get a follow-up email from us And that'll include the recording and the slides and other information that's been shared. And if you can go to the next slide. I also want to thank our sponsors. If you back up one, Entrepreneur Source and Wave, thank you for your sponsorship. Next slide, please, very quickly. You have a chance to join the Encore network if, in fact, you're not already a member, at a discount. And you can see if you go to our website and push the join button and use this code, which I will include in the follow-up email, event special, that will give you a 10% discount between now and the end of the day Monday. Next slide. Great deal. We have a program called Peer Consulting, which provides support to people who are starting businesses and who are further along in their businesses. So if you have an idea, a challenge, a question, you can get input from those of us who have been a part of the organization and have some experience to share. Next, so that's a benefit of being a member of the Encore network. Next slide. We have some upcoming programs, and there's one on October 2nd called Level Up Your Networking Game. And you can go to our website, encorenetwork.org/events, and sign up for that. Janine also will be doing a program on October 9th in recognition of Ageism Awareness Day, an international holiday that is sponsored by the World Health Organization, I believe. This event has been hosted by the Encore Entrepreneurship Affinity Group. If you're a member of the Encore Network, you can join us for our next meeting on October 1st. And I just want to call out one other meeting that I think many of you may be interested in, another affinity group called Starting and Sustaining an Encore Organization. We'll have a guest speaker at its meeting on the 25th of September, which is next Wednesday, talking about community-led growth and customer acquisition. So if those topics are of interest, go to our website, encorenetwork.org/events, and sign up. We look forward to seeing you at some point down the line. Thank you very much. Thanks to our panel. Thanks to Janine. Thanks to Mary. Thanks to all of you for being a part of the program today, and we wish you well. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye, everyone.
Connect.